The Ravens are being examined. It sounds like a medical term. They're in the medical room waiting for Roger Goodell to come in. So apparently, according to Yahoo Sports, and we saw this last week, the Ravens reported that Lamar Jackson was a full participant in Friday's practice. We thought he was going to play last week. So it misled the public, misled the Bears who were in town. Chicago thought he was going to play. Then all of a sudden on Saturday, the Ravens said, no, Lamar's limited because he hasn't taken any starters reps. So not only did that throw out preparation potentially for the Bears, we saw the number move as well at BetMGM. So this number had been going between Ravens minus 7.5 and 7. And then by kickoff, it was Ravens minus 2.5 or 2 because everyone thought Lamar was going to play. So the Ravens won 30-16. They covered regardless with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. But the NFL is going to look into this because potentially this is, whether it was intentional or not, it looks like market manipulation.
Absolutely. And it looks like, an unfair advantage, even if you take the betting situation out of it, where they're manipulating injury reports to fool their opponents, which you're not supposed to be doing. But it does feel like one of those things where I'm not sure if this would be quite as big of a deal if it weren't the current climate that we're in with all of the NBA stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Where people are like, well, he was supposed to play. He was a full participant at practice, and now he's not playing? Because normally if you're a full participant in practice, it means you're going to play. So there's all types of theories being thrown around here. Maybe it's that they wanted some type of advantage of, game planning for against the other team. Maybe it's just a soft tissue injury where you think it's good to go and then you wake up the next day and it's not. Or I've even seen theories, I think Nick Wright floated this, that the Ravens were trying to pressure Lamar Jackson into playing, and he stopped it, and he was like, no, I'm not 100%. So Who knows what's actually going on behind closed doors, but it does feel like somebody needs to do some splaining, because clearly the truth was not the main thing that people were talking about last week. And it's wild because, Coach Harbaugh even talked about this, and he kind of sidestepped it. So I don't know who's telling the truth here, but I don't know. There's definitely some murky waters here.
I will say that you're absolutely right. This has everything to do with what's going on in the NBA. You cannot have any sort of inkling or any sort of perception of impropriety, especially now, because everyone is super sensitive as to what's going on. In fact, we saw a reaction to this yesterday with what's going on in the NBA with the gambling charges and the poker charges and the ties to the mafia, where the NCAA is pushing back the decision to let college athletes bet on pro sports. So all of a sudden they realized maybe this isn't the best idea. And that happened right before the whole NBA news broke last week. So everyone is being very sensitive, and rightfully so, about looking at sports and saying, is there something nefarious going on here? Is there something that we don't know about that is affecting the outcome of the games? And so you can't do anything like this if you're an NFL team that might make it seem like you're trying to manipulate the market, because we've already seen that in the NBA, and no other sport wants to touch any of that.
Here's a serious question, and I don't even know the answer to this, so it might be tough for you to answer as well, but do you think the public should know about injury reports? Do you think this should be like public information? Like, why does the public need to know? I feel like I've heard people talk about this, and I do think it's kind of interesting. This isn't a thing in college football, right? They don't have to say anything.
No, they don't. It's more of transparency in the NFL more than anything else. Like, this isn't really done for the public. It's done for opposing teams. Like, this is where we are. And frankly, I think it helps generate discussion in the NFL. Like, they don't have to do this, but we're seeing it more and more because betting is involved, because people want to know, because it helps generate attention. Like, if you know someone may or may not play, aren't you a little more fascinated in what might happen in that game? Yeah, of course. So, and I also think that, look, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to allow sports wagering to take place, and we're seeing it across the country more and more, as we know, there's a reason why we've been doing this show, then you're going to have some sort of transparency if you want that to work.
Right. I feel like we've seen this done before, though. Haven't the Niners been bad at this? To the point where, like, their players in the locker room that, like, didn't even know, or they said something after the game where they're like, yeah, he told me I was going to play on Tuesday. And they're like, that's not what he said. Do you
Right.
remember that? I think it was Jordan Mason or somebody who got, like, thrown under the bus because I guess the truth slipped out. And I guess Kyle Shanahan was saying one thing to the media and then did one thing on game day.
I mean, sometimes you see this too. It's a fine line as well. Like, there's a difference between gamesmanship and manipulation. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you see this in college football a lot. Like, we'll see where he is. He's doing okay. You can do that. You know, he's getting better. He's improving. We'll see where we are at the end of the week. That's different than he was a full participant yesterday. Oh, no, he hasn't been working out. You know what I mean? Like, sort of, you know, walking the tightrope between maybe he is, maybe he isn't, is a lot different than being definitive and saying, no, this guy isn't going, and then suddenly flipping it around and saying, yes, he is, or vice versa.
Yeah, and then gaslighting everybody. Like, I think that was the craziest part of, like, John Harbaugh is that, like, he's so flippant about it. He's like, you guys know about injuries? Like, sometimes they're injured, sometimes they're not. You're like, what? Like, I understand it's a soft tissue injury. And here's the other thing that's going to be tough to police is that sometimes with soft tissue injuries, guys can re-injure themselves. So it's the same thing in the NBA when somebody goes down early with an injury and you're like, are they faking an injury to, you know, so their friends can play the under? Sometimes they might actually be hurt.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it wasn't like Lamar Jackson was not a full participant. Why? I had a poker game. Like, oh my God, no. No. Worst thing ever. So I don't know if this was intentional or not. Sometimes I think there can be a miscommunication as well. I mean, sometimes, you know, between what happens on the practice field and what goes out, there can be, you know, something that just kind of falls between the cracks. It could absolutely be non-related at all to any sort of manipulation. Because look, when the NCAA said, we're going to let college athletes bet on pro sports, and then less than 24 hours later, the whole NBA story broke. It's not like that was coordinated or anything. It was just a situation where there was bad timing. So this could be the same thing, is what I'm trying to say. But should the NFL punish the Ravens and say, we're not even going down this road? We're going to put a pin in this, and we're going to stop this before it even gets going. Don't even think about doing anything that makes it look like something is going on here that shouldn't be going on.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but listen, it's the NFL's wheel of punishment where it's like, hey, we're going to fine a guy $35,000 for doing a celebration after a touchdown. And then sometimes they don't punish guys at all for like a terrible like hit on the quarterback if it's a running quarterback. So it's one of those things where like I hate to speculate because I feel like I never know the punishment that the NFL is going to hand down in the wheel of punishment.